Hello, and welcome back to the last little bit of 7.1. I wanted to add in a problem from Alex because this isn't really covered in my notes because I can't generate these samples in my notes. So this is generated from Alex's question. It says, suppose we are interested in studying a population to estimate its mean. The population is normal and has a standard deviation of 4. We have taken a random sample of size 12 from the population. And you can see, this is sample 1 in the table. In the as shown in the table below, we've got the sample mean of 89. Okay. Let's see. And okay, and then also shown are the lower and upper limits for the 80% confidence interval for the population mean using the sample, as well as the lower and upper limits of the 95% confidence interval. Suppose that the true mean of a population is 90, which is shown on the displays for the confidence intervals. So the sample size is 12. But they actually ran the sample. They did sample sizes of 12 20 times. And this is what they came up with. So sample 1 had 12 observations in it, and that sample mean was 89, and the lower limit for the 80% was 87.5. The upper limit was 90.5. And so they did this 20 times, and that's what these samples are. And this line down the middle here is the true population mean of 90. And the same with this one. This is a 95% confidence interval. And the true population mean is 90 there as well. And so what it says, when we do an 80% confidence interval, we're saying hopefully 80% of these intervals should contain the true population mean. So the first question A says, how many of the 80% confidence intervals, how many of these 20 actually contain the mean of 90? So we're going to go through and I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So we would enter 17 here. And that's because this one does not contain the mean. This one does not contain the mean. And this one does not contain the mean. Then it says, how many of the 95% confidence intervals constructed from the 20 samples contain the population mean? So I'm going to go through and count as well in a 95%. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Notice this one here does not, is right on the edge, and this one here does not. And it's the same samples from the 80%. This one now does include it because it got a little bit wider. So remember, we talked about in the notes that when your confidence goes from 80% to 90%, the confidence interval gets wider because you're more confident that the true value is inside there. Okay, so the 95% confidence intervals will include the 80%. It's within there. Notice that these overlap a little bit more to the right or to the left than they did originally, but they contain the original 80% within the 90%. So let's go and look at the questions that they ask at the bottom. These are going to vary from question to question, so don't trust that they're always going to ask the same thing. So for this particular one, it asked me, since sample 19 and sample 20 are drawn from the same population, the center of the 95% confidence interval for sample 19 must be the same as the center of the 95% confidence interval for sample 20. And that is not true. They're different samples, so that's not true. So I'm not going to check that. Then it says, for some of the samples, the 80% confidence interval is included in the 95% confidence interval, while for other samples, this is not the case. No, that's not true. The 80% confidence intervals are all included in the 95% confidence intervals. Okay, let's look at the third one. All of the 95% confidence intervals should be the same as each other. Since they are not all the same, there must be errors due to rounding. No, they're not going to be the same. And they won't be the same because they're random samples. The last one, the center of the 80% confidence interval for sample 1 is 89. That's true. That's our mean. Because the center of a confidence interval for the population mean must be the sample mean. That is true. That is the only one that's true on this one. So we're going to mark 17, 18 for A and B, and then letter C, the only one was the fourth one was true. And that's what they have here. This is what I marked, 17 and 18, and this one. So when you're looking at the ALEKS, this will be blank here. It's going to ask you to generate the sample. That will pop up. And so you're going to read through your scenario, and then you're going to hit generate the sample, and then it's going to show you your intervals that contain the true population mean. And then you're going to do some counting about those intervals. So a true 80% confidence interval, if we did 20 samples, we should have 16 of them. Ours contains 17. Okay, pretty close. Of the 95% confidence intervals, 95% of the 20 should be included. So that should be 19, but we were just one short. And so that's reasonable. It's not always going to be perfect, but it should be close. So catch me back if you have any other questions on chapter 7.